It appears that the first Trump slave camp is now being built in Utah. That is not hyperbole, all right? This is following President Donald Trump's executive order on homelessness. Utah is building a massive internment camp where homeless people will be sent to and forced to perform hard labor. Last month, Utah's homeless services agencies came to an agreement for the state to acquire a nearly 16-acre parcel of rural land in the North Point area of northwest Salt Lake City to construct the first of its kind facility, which is slated to have around 1,300 beds. The project began in July following Trump's executive order ending crime and disorder on America's streets, which threatened to withhold funding from states and cities unless they criminalized homeless people camping on streets and ordered the Attorney General to expand the use of involuntary civil commitment for adults experiencing homelessness. Involuntary, of course, being another word for slavery. Okay? This involuntary commitment. All right? Now, the order also requires the Department of Housing and Urban Development to end its support of housing first policies, despite the fact that, of course, those policies were pretty effective at curbing homelessness. I've got some details on that later on. But less than a week after that order, Utah's Republican Governor Spencer Cox, as well as the state Senate President and House Speaker, both Republicans, sent a letter to the state Homeless Services Board, which was created last year following a legislative push by something called the Cicero Institute, a far-right think tank that has proposed aggressive measures to criminalize homelessness and which has had a major influence over Trump's crackdown on the homeless during his second term. In the letter, the leaders agreed with Trump in the administration that they do not support housing first policies and claimed they lack accountability, and directed the board to accelerate progress on a transformative services-based homeless campus that would prioritize recovery, treatment, and long-term outcomes, not just emergency shelter. No, this sounds like forced labor camps. Okay, that's really it. Now, Eric Tars of the National Homelessness Law Center noted that under this proposal, drafted by the chair of Utah's Homeless Services Board, Randy Shumway, more than 300 of the beds at the facility would be slated for involuntary commitment. Sending people there, just sending them there, forcing them to go. Now, what about all the beds that are not slated for civil commitment? They will apparently include work-conditioned housing. Tars says that the thing that scared him the most is because it means forced labor, that scares him, the work-conditioned housing. And of course, that work-conditioned housing will likely end up being for a corporate donor, okay, that just wants cheap labor or basically free labor. Now, he also noted that other anti-homeless bills recently proposed in Republican areas also have a forced labor element to them because, that's Republicans now. Republicans are the party of slavery. Just, slavery for poor people. Yeah, let's let the homeless do it. Okay, that's who we're going to make the new slaves. Okay, and look, slavery, by the way, still exists in this country. It has for a very long time. It just mainly was done by prisoners. But apparently that's not enough now. Okay, prison labor, not good enough. Now we're just going to take people. We're going to criminalize homelessness, and then we're going to take those people and make them into slaves. Oh, that's horrifying. Now, let me give you some examples of the other states. In Louisiana, there is a bill that punishes outdoor camping. It was introduced earlier this year. It proposes requiring those convicted to serve up to 2 years of hard labor. So it's just right out there. Yes, if you are camping outside and you get convicted, you are sentenced to 2 years hard labor for a corporation. Wow. In Louisiana, oh, sorry, this is West Virginia. I already said Louisiana. Another bill introduced there would have required those arrested for camping to take part in what they call facility upkeep and other forms of what they call vocational training. Facility upkeep just means like being a, housekeeper, okay? Facility upkeep, okay? Cleaning, cleaning toilets and sweeping, floors and things like that. Manual labor. Great. I mean, all of this is absolutely insidious, okay? Because we live in a country right now where housing is unaffordable. That's it. You can work full time in this country and still not make enough money to pay for a house, to pay for a home, an apartment, depending on where you live. Now, the Republican solution to that is to arrest those people and to shove them into forced labor camps where you are not allowed to leave. No, of course not. And by the way, this campus, it's over 7 miles away from the downtown Salt Lake City, in the middle of nowhere with absolutely no public transportation. So they're just taking people, shoving them in the desert in this facility, and they cannot leave. They just can't. And even if you do manage to make it somewhere else, TARS says that, the people are going to be, the authorities are going to be actively enforcing anti-camping, anti-loitering, and other laws. So odds are, if you leave this facility and you end up going back to the city, you're just going to get picked up and sent back. That's it. You're going to end up right back in there. Now, I mean, again, it's horrifying. Now, that said, state officials, let's go to the cost here. They expect the facility to cost about $75 million to construct. And I think that's important talking about the cost as well, because this costs a lot of money, $75 million. And then on top of that, about $30 million a year for ongoing operations. Okay. So I think it's important to point out the cost because there are other ways to deal with homelessness that are, first, don't involve slavery, for one, and secondly, they actually cost less. Okay? Let me give you an example. Utah, in the last 2 decades, they went from nearly eliminating chronic homelessness. All right? 91% reduction in chronic homelessness. Okay? They did that using housing first policies. They went from that to now building a literal forced labor camp. The state used to be a success. I mean, 91%. You had a chronic homeless population going from 2,000 to 200 within just 10 years. Okay? At a much lower cost, by the way, than this facility. How much did it cost? Only about $55 million. Yeah. Turns out it's actually cheaper and more effective to give people affordable housing. And it will be to create and operate a slave camp. But again, the slave camp, though, in the cost, it doesn't matter to them because that's what the outcome they want is the slave camp. Oh, by the way, adding in to this is Bill Tibbetts, who's the Deputy Executive Director of Crossroads Urban Center, which is a low-income advocacy nonprofit based in Utah. He said that the cost will actually much likely be higher than $75 million, as these projects usually are. Okay. Now, why would they do this? Well, it's not about helping people, that's for sure. It is actually about punishing homelessness and homeless people. The cruelty here is the point. Remember, these people view homelessness as a moral and personal failure on your part. Not a societal failure, which is what it is, but a moral and personal failure. Okay? Because if that's the case, well, then we don't actually have to fix it. And we can exploit these people. Yay! We can let these corporations that fund us They give us all sorts of campaign money. We're going to allow them to exploit labor for essentially free. Of course. Now, Tibbetts notes that although the Trump administration portrays homelessness as primarily the result of addiction and mental illness, the reality is that the majority of the people who visit a shelter are not chronically homeless. They just need a place to stay following a short-term period of financial hardship. Senior citizen who had had their rent increase beyond what they could afford is not going to want to go to a quasi-correctional facility to get help finding a place to live that they can afford. Look, here's the thing. I've actually been homeless before. When I was younger, I grew up kind of poor, okay? And my family and I, we kind of bounced from place to place. And a few times, more than a few times, we ended up staying with other relatives. I remember in high school, I got foreclosed on. Well, not me, but my mom. We got foreclosed on and lost a house. And I spent most of my senior year sleeping on couches, staying with friends. Wasn't great. It's actually kind of terrible. But it could have been a lot worse, I know. All right. And at the time, I was working part-time at the shooting club, and I was going to school, right? But so I couldn't afford a house. I couldn't afford an apartment. Couldn't afford anything like that. But here's the thing. As I said, it could have been worse because had I not had the resources, people to stay with, family, friends, those options, and we had these camps, then I could have ended up in one of those. That's a scary thought when you think about it. Very, very scary thought. All right. Now, Tibbetts wrote in an email to the Utah News Dispatch that a 300 to 400 bed mental and behavioral health facility that people are not allowed to leave is not a shelter, but essentially a jail. Yeah. And again, that is the point. That is absolutely the point. Now, you might notice the sidebar might look a little bit familiar because that's actually from a Star Trek Deep Space Nine episode in which the heroes, the officers go back in time. Time travel episode. Back to the 2020s, 2024 specifically, and find that, things are pretty bad. That there are these sanctuary districts, they call them, of which they shove all the poor and homeless people. And it's really, really a good episode and not something that this administration probably should have modeled things after, but it feels like they did. It's great social commentary, but not so good for policy. All right? But again, that's the point. Okay, the point here from this administration is to punish homeless people. All right? The threat of homelessness itself, along with all these anti-homeless laws, what they do is that they help keep the workers in line. All right? They keep the ultra-rich happy, and they keep the workers in line because they're too afraid to push back. They're too afraid of becoming homeless and then getting arrested and being sent to these camps. That's the reality. Remember, a lot of us are 1 or 2 missed paychecks away from ending up on the streets. Or soon in one of these forced labor camps that they're building. And so that threat, is part of the way the very, very wealthy, the people in power, the people who are actually running this country, okay? It doesn't have to be a conspiracy theory, where it's like, you've got this shady cabal of people that are secretly running everything. No, they're not exactly a secret, okay? They're people like Peter Thiel, okay, that are running the Elon Musk, the billionaires that are very much out in the open, buying politicians, these giant corporations with their massive lobbying expenditures. They're all out there right in the open, okay? Right out there. It's those people that are running things, that are running our society. And these are the people that are saying, you know, we could use more free labor. All right. So why don't you figure out a way to get people to giving up that free labor for us, for our benefit, not theirs. And one of the ways that they do it, that they figured out on how to do it, is to punish homeless people. To use them as a new source of free labor that they can exploit. Capitalism always leads to massive exploitation, and this is just one new example of that. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, subscribe, hit the bell icon in order to get notified whenever a new video is released. And if you want to support independent, progressive media through this difficult time where it seems like everybody is shutting down, you can become a member on our YouTube page, you can become a subscriber on Facebook, or you can go to my Patreon. It's patreon.com/Jeff Waldorf. Thank you.